Let me start with the truth that most men aren't ready to hear. And honestly, it might surprise some of you watching too. Women don't care how much you sacrifice, they don't care how much you give, and they definitely don't stay loyal just because you treated them well. That's not how female loyalty actually works. In fact, the more a man tries to earn loyalty by doing things for her, the faster he usually loses it. And tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly why this happens, because I've studied this pattern in countless relationships, and once you understand this, relationships will never confuse you again. But before we dive in, I want to say hello. Hi, I'm Olivia, and welcome to Psychology Secrets with Olivia. If you've been learning from my videos and you want to support this work, you can subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, and join our community. Your support helps me create more powerful content for you, and I truly appreciate every single one of you. Now, here's what I want you to know before we continue. If you're watching this right now, there's probably a relationship situation that's confusing you. Maybe you've been in a situation where you gave everything and she still left, or you've noticed that some men do very little, yet women seem absolutely obsessed with them, while other men do absolutely everything and still get replaced. And if that's you, please know you're not alone. I've heard from thousands of people in this exact situation, and I want you to stay with me because the answers you're looking for are in this conversation. So let me start with something vulnerable. I remember working with a client named Marcus, and his story really stuck with me because it illustrates something so fundamental about how relationships actually work. Marcus was the kind of man who did everything right on paper. He was attentive, thoughtful, he remembered every detail about his girlfriend's life, he surprised her with gifts, he made sure she felt supported, but somewhere along the way, she started pulling away. And Marcus couldn't understand it because by every logical measure, he was being an amazing partner. He was doing more, giving more, investing more, but his girlfriend kept getting more distant. And that's when he reached out to me because he was genuinely confused. He was asking, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing everything right. And here's what I told him and what I'm going to tell you now. The problem isn't what you're doing. The problem is what you're communicating through what you're doing. And that's where we need to start. Most men are taught a lie from a very young age. They're told, be nice, be supportive, do more, give more, and she'll stay. So they invest their time, their energy, their attention, their money, their emotional labor, and for a while it works. She appreciates it, she enjoys it, she benefits from it. But here's the thing that nobody tells you. Appreciation is not loyalty, and comfort is not desire. Those are completely different things, and this distinction will change everything you understand about relationships. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever felt appreciated but not connected to someone? Or have you felt safe and comfortable but not attracted? Of course you have. We all have. That's because appreciation and comfort are surface-level emotional experiences. They feel good in the moment, but they don't create the kind of deep attachment and loyalty that keeps relationships alive and thriving. So what actually creates loyalty? That's the real question. And the answer comes from understanding something really fundamental about female psychology. Women don't attach to effort. They attach to emotional experience. How they feel around you matters more than anything you do for them. This is backed by attachment theory and decades of psychological research. Your actions matter, absolutely, but they only matter in how they make her feel about herself and about her experience with you. Let me give you a real example. I worked with a woman named Sarah who was in a relationship with two different men at different points in her life. The first man was incredibly attentive. He would text her constantly. He would show up at her work with coffee. He would plan elaborate date nights. He would basically restructure his entire life around her. But whenever they were together, she felt anxious. She felt like she had to be grateful. She felt like she was managing his emotions. She felt like his happiness depended on her, and that created this invisible pressure that made her feel smaller, not bigger. Then she met someone else. This man wasn't doing all those grand gestures, but when she was around him, she felt like the best version of herself. She felt safe enough to be completely honest. She felt like he had his own life, his own purpose, his own direction, and he was choosing to include her in that. And the difference in how she felt was night and day. The second man didn't have to do as much because he was creating a different emotional experience. This is the first psychological truth I need you to really sit with. Women are loyal to the emotional experience you create, not to the effort you put in. This is why you've probably noticed that some men do very little, yet women stay obsessed with them, while other men do everything and still get replaced. It's not luck, it's psychology. And once you understand this, you can actually build something sustainable. Now, let me tell you what women are actually loyal to, because this is going to reshape how you think about relationships completely. The core truth about female loyalty is this: women are loyal to how a man makes them feel about themselves. Not his effort, not his loyalty, not even his consistency. Their loyalty is primarily emotional, not logical. And this is where most men lose their power. They think loyalty is earned by proving value, by demonstrating how committed they are, by showing up and doing more. But female psychology doesn't work like that, and it's really important that you understand why. Here's what happens when a man starts overgiving to secure loyalty. He's essentially signaling something very specific. He's signaling fear of loss, and fear kills attraction. Think about what it communicates. When you're constantly trying to prove your worth, what are you really saying? That you don't believe you're already worthy, that you need to compensate for something, that you're afraid she'll leave if you stop performing. And women feel this desperation even when it's wrapped in kindness and good intentions. I had a client named James who would constantly say yes to everything his wife wanted to do. Vacations, social plans, career decisions, everything. He was constantly accommodating, constantly putting her first, constantly trying to create these perfect moments. And on the surface, that sounds wonderful, right? But his wife told me something that really opened my eyes. She said, "I feel like I have to manage his feelings about what I want. It's exhausting." She wasn't exhausted from being loved. She was exhausted from carrying the emotional weight of his fear that she might not stay. And that's the paradox that most men don't understand. The thing you think will make her stay is actually the thing that pushes her away. Because the moment she feels like she has to protect your emotional well-being, the dynamic shifts. You're no longer her partner. You become someone she has to manage. So what should you be focusing on instead? The second thing women are loyal to is emotional safety. And I need to be really clear here because this gets misunderstood. Emotional safety doesn't mean predictability. It doesn't mean being nice all the time or never disagreeing. Emotional safety means confidence, emotional control, stability under pressure, and strength without aggression. Let me explain what that actually looks like in a relationship. A man who stays calm when things get tense automatically becomes more valuable because he regulates the emotional environment. When conflict arises, instead of getting reactive and defensive, he stays present and thoughtful. When she's upset, instead of trying to fix it or becoming upset himself, he remains grounded. And women are profoundly loyal to the man who controls emotional gravity. This is so important. The man who can hold space for her emotions without losing himself becomes irreplaceable. I want to tell you about something that surprised me when I was doing research on this. Women actually test emotional safety constantly, and most men don't even realize it's happening. She might pull away slightly. She might become colder without explanation. She might create distance, not because she's planning to leave, but because she's checking to see who you are without reassurance, without her needs being the focus. And how you respond to that test determines absolutely everything. If you chase her, you fail the test. If you start explaining yourself or trying to convince her you're worth staying with, you fail the test. If you panic and become clingy, you definitely fail. But if you remain centered, if you stay present without needing her to reassure you, if you maintain your sense of self and your sense of purpose, her loyalty deepens exponentially. Because you've just shown her that you have enough internal stability to handle her having her own experience. This is something I've observed over and over again. When a woman pulls away and a man responds with secure confidence, something shifts, she feels safer, not because you're trying to make her feel safe, but because you're actually safe. You're not falling apart. You're not threatening to leave if she doesn't comply with your needs. You're just being stable. And that stability is magnetic. Now, here's something that shocks most men, and I want you to really pay attention to this part because it's the key to everything. Women are loyal to identity, not personality. Not kindness, not effort, not even love. Identity, who you are at your core, not what you do, not how you perform, not what you accomplish, but who you fundamentally are. If your identity is strong, your actions matter less. If your identity is weak, no amount of actions can save you. And that's why women stay loyal to men who walk away when disrespected. That's why women respect men who don't beg, who don't overinvest, who don't collapse emotionally. Those behaviors signal high internal value. They signal that the man's worth isn't dependent on her validation, and loyalty flows upward toward that kind of strength. It never flows downward toward desperation. Let me tell you about someone named David. David had been in a relationship that was slowly degrading. His girlfriend would make jokes at his expense in front of her friends. She would dismiss his opinions. She would flirt with other guys right in front of him. And what did David do? He tried harder. He became more accommodating. He became more available. He apologized more. He essentially told her through his actions that he would accept whatever treatment she gave him as long as she stayed. And you know what happened? She left. Not because he wasn't trying hard enough, but because her respect for him had eroded completely. He had lost his identity in the relationship. She didn't see a man anymore. She saw someone trying desperately to be worthy of her. But then, imagine if David had done something different. What if he had said, "I care about you, but I won't accept being disrespected"? What if he had maintained his boundaries? What if he had made it clear that his self-respect was non-negotiable? That might have changed everything. Not necessarily the outcome of that specific relationship, but it would have communicated his actual value. And women are loyal to that kind of value. This is a hard pill to swallow, and I want to acknowledge that. We want to believe that goodness alone is enough. We want to believe that treating someone well automatically creates loyalty, and I absolutely believe in treating people well, but human psychology is more complex than that. Respect isn't created by what you give someone, it's created by how you value yourself, how you treat yourself, what you accept and what you don't. That's what creates respect. Let me talk about something that's really important and often misunderstood: the difference between obligation and loyalty. These are not the same thing, and this distinction is crucial. A woman can feel obligated to you, she can feel grateful to you, she can be comfortable with you, and she can still not feel loyal, because loyalty requires respect, and respect doesn't come from giving, it comes from self-control. Think about obligation like debt. When a woman stays out of obligation, she's mentally keeping score. She's tallying what you've done. She's weighing her guilt against her unhappiness. And eventually, unhappiness wins. But when a woman is truly loyal, there's no scoreboard. There's no mental calculation. She stays because something deeper is at play. She stays because of who you are, not what you've provided. I worked with a couple where the man had literally sacrificed everything for the woman. He had given up his career opportunities. He had moved for her. He had made her dreams his priority. And he was constantly reminding her of this, either directly or indirectly. I did this for you. I gave that up for you. And what he was creating was obligation, not loyalty. She felt trapped. She felt guilty. She felt like she owed him something. And that's a terrible foundation for a relationship. Eventually, she left, and he was shocked. He was thinking, how could she leave after everything I did? But that's not how loyalty works. Loyalty isn't created through sacrifice. It's created through mutual respect and genuine connection. Now, I want to introduce you to something I call the momentum principle. And this is one of the most important things to understand about female psychology. Women are loyal to momentum. When a man is moving forward in life, when he has direction, when he's growing and evolving, she feels pulled into his frame. But when he stops growing, when he becomes stagnant, she starts emotionally detaching. And it doesn't matter how good he was in the past. Female attraction is present-focused. Who you are now matters infinitely more than who you were. This is why stagnation kills relationships. Not arguments, not distance, not even conflict, stagnation. When a man loses direction, when he becomes comfortable and stops pursuing his goals and stops challenging himself, she loses emotional alignment with him. And his loyalty fades, but it fades silently. It's not dramatic. There's no big fight. She just becomes less interested, less present, less engaged. Think about the relationships you've seen fall apart. How many of them ended because the man stopped evolving? He got comfortable. He had achieved what he wanted. He stopped pursuing his goals. He stopped challenging himself intellectually or personally. And suddenly, the woman who once admired him started looking at him differently. The spark wasn't gone because of something he did wrong. The spark was gone because he stopped doing anything at all. And here's the thing that's really important. This isn't shallow. This isn't women being superficial or materialistic. This is hardwired female psychology. Attraction to growth and evolution is biological. It's about vitality and aliveness. When a man is stagnant, he's literally less alive. He's less engaged. He's less interesting. And on a primal level, women sense that, and it changes how they feel. I had a client named Robert who was in a successful marriage for about 10 years. But then something shifted. He got comfortable, he achieved professional success, and he stopped pushing himself. He stopped learning. He stopped challenging himself. He became predictable. And his wife, who had been completely devoted to him, started emotionally withdrawing. Not because of anything he did wrong, but because he had become less than he was. And when he realized what was happening and started pursuing his growth again, when he went back to school, when he started new projects, when he became alive again, everything shifted in their relationship. So here's what I want you to understand about momentum. It's not about being busy or about constantly achieving. It's about having direction. It's about growth. It's about engaging with your life in a way that keeps you evolving. Now, I want to talk about something that's deeply important. How a man handles loss matters more than almost anything else. When things go wrong, when conflict appears, when emotions rise, does he remain grounded or does he fall apart? Because this is where true character is revealed. A man who can lose without losing himself becomes absolutely irreplaceable. Because emotional mastery is rare. Most men collapse when faced with potential loss. They panic. They become reactive. They try to control the situation through force or desperation. They either become aggressive or they become needy. Both of these are trauma responses. But the man who can face loss with dignity, who can say, I care about you, but I won't beg. I won't collapse. I'll be okay either way. That man becomes unforgettable. Because he's just communicated something incredibly powerful. He's just shown her that she's not his entire world, that he has value outside of her, that he can survive without her. And paradoxically, that makes her not want to leave. There's a concept in psychology called secure attachment, and it's one of the most attractive things a person can have. Secure attachment means you're comfortable in your own skin. You don't need someone else to complete you. You can love someone deeply without needing them to validate your existence. And women are absolutely loyal to that kind of security. I want to tell you about something subtle but incredibly powerful. Women don't test men consciously, they test emotionally, they pull away slightly, they become colder, they create distance, and it's not to leave, it's to see who you are without reassurance, without her needs being the focus. And how you respond to that test determines everything. If you chase, you fail. If you explain, you fail. If you panic, you fail. But if you remain centered, if you stay detached but present, if you maintain your own life and your own interests, her loyalty deepens because you've just shown her something real. You've shown her that you have your own internal world, that you're not dependent on her for validation. Let me give you a concrete example of what this looks like. Sarah's boyfriend noticed that she was being distant. She wasn't answering his texts as quickly. She wasn't as engaged when they were together. And instead of panicking, instead of texting her constantly or trying to figure out what he did wrong, he just continued with his life. He went to the gym, he spent time with his friends, he worked on his projects, he remained present but not needy. And what happened? Sarah noticed that he wasn't chasing her. She realized that the emotional responsibility for the relationship wasn't on her shoulders. She felt safer. She felt like she could be honest about what was going on with her without him falling apart, and her loyalty actually increased because she realized he was secure enough to handle whatever she was going through. Now, let me talk about what women are not loyal to, because this is equally important to understand. Women are not loyal to overavailability. They're not loyal to emotional dependency. They're not loyal to people pleasing. They're not loyal to self-sacrifice without boundaries. Those behaviors feel safe, but safety without attraction creates indifference. And indifference is the beginning of the end. This is where good men lose good women. They think being always available shows love. They think having no other interests shows commitment. They think agreeing with everything shows compatibility. But what it actually shows is a lack of self. And you cannot be loyal to someone who has no self because there's nothing to be loyal to. Think about it. If you're available 24/7, what does that communicate? It communicates that you have no other life, no other priorities, no other people or projects that matter to you. And on a subconscious level, that makes you less valuable, not more. Because if you have no other life, why would she be the exception? I want to address something that I think is really important, and I get questions about this constantly. Love is not loyalty. These are two completely different things, and confusing them causes so much heartbreak. Love is emotional, it's about how you feel. Loyalty is respect based, it's about who you see. A woman can love a man and still leave him, but she will struggle to leave a man she respects. Love fluctuates. It rises and falls with circumstances and emotions and experiences. But respect? Respect is structural. It's foundational. It doesn't fluctuate like love does. I had a client named Amanda who was in love with her boyfriend, but she didn't respect him. And she knew that eventually she would have to leave, even though she still had feelings for him. She told me, I can't build a life with someone I don't respect, even though I love him. And that's the truth that most people don't understand. Love alone isn't enough. You need respect. And respect is built through how you carry yourself, how you treat yourself, what you accept and what you don't. So what are women truly loyal to? Let me summarize this because it's important. They are loyal to emotional strength, self-respect, direction, identity, and how they feel in a man's presence, not what he does for them, not his sacrifice, not his effort, but who he is and how he makes her feel about herself. This is why silence sometimes works better than words, why walking away creates more impact than chasing, why emotional restraint beats emotional expression, because restraint signals power, and power attracts loyalty. Now, I want to be really clear about something because I know this can be misunderstood. This isn't about being cold or manipulative or uncaring. This is absolutely not about playing games or about using these principles to control someone. This is about self-containment. A man who doesn't leak his value forces others to feel it without him having to explain it. Real strength isn't aggression. It isn't domination. It isn't emotional withdrawal as punishment. Real strength is knowing your value so deeply that you don't need constant validation. It's being able to love someone without needing them to complete you. It's having the courage to walk away from disrespect even when it hurts. When you stop trying to earn loyalty and start embodying value, everything shifts. She listens more, she respects more, she feels more, and loyalty becomes natural, not forced. It becomes something that flows from her, not something you're trying to extract from her through effort and sacrifice. I want to talk about something that I think explains so much, why being too good actually backfires. If you've ever wondered why being too good didn't work, why giving more didn't help, or why she pulled away without warning, now you know. It was never about effort. It was about who you were becoming, or more accurately, who you were not becoming. Because when a man stops growing, he starts shrinking in her eyes. Not because women are shallow, but because female psychology is wired to respond to growth and aliveness. The man who continually evolves, who faces challenges, who develops himself, who reads and learns and pushes himself, that man remains attractive. The man who plateaus, who becomes predictable, who stops pursuing excellence in any area of his life, that man becomes invisible. Even if he's kind, even if he's loyal, even if he does everything right. I worked with a woman named Jennifer, who described her husband as being the nicest guy in the world. He was kind, supportive, helpful, but she'd completely lost attraction to him. When I asked her why, she said, he just stopped being interesting to me. We'd have the same conversations. He'd stopped growing. He'd stopped challenging himself. He was just comfortable. And comfortable became boring. And that's not a reflection on the man. That's just how female psychology works. We're attracted to growth. We're attracted to men who are engaged with their own lives, who are pursuing something, who are becoming more every day. Now, here's the final truth that I need you to understand, and this is really important. Female loyalty isn't about fairness. It's not about justice. It's not about who deserves what. It's about primal psychology that exists beneath conscious awareness. And you can fight against it. You can call it unfair. You can wish it were different. But that won't change anything. The reality is this: women are loyal to strength, not sacrifice. To presence, not presence. To who you are, not what you do. And if you can master this understanding, loyalty becomes effortless. But if you ignore this, you'll spend your life wondering why your best wasn't good enough. If this video gave you clarity about relationships and female psychology, I want to ask you to like this video. Your likes help me create more content like this. And please subscribe to Psychology Secrets with Olivia because we go deep into these topics every week. And if you have a question or a relationship situation you want me to explore, leave it in the comments. I read every single comment, and your questions inspire my next videos. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.